everybody, welcome to today's session. Just getting started here. So this is a really great new session. We're going to get into some more tech sessions as we continue on in 2022. So welcome back to 2022. So this session is of interest. So it's 4K video production with Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. So we're going to look at how we use 4K technology, what that means, and Blackmagic RAW, and exactly how to work with Blackmagic RAW. So this will be a great reference tool. So if you're joining us live, that's great, and you can always rewatch this again later. So we're going to keep this up. We're going to post this after, so you can have this reference tool to know and understand really what 4K production is all about, because it can get really complicated. We have a camera here. I'm going to be demoing with the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera that's available through our library partners, and we'll get right into what 4K is and the differences between the two, and we have some really great resources too. So I always want to remind everyone that they can check out the tbmcs.ca website. You can go there. Our YouTube channel is filled with all the Blackmagic Cinema Camera tutorials and all that fun stuff. So I just want to thank all our partners in this project. So we have our library partners. We have the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, the Wasaga Beach Public Library, and we have the Canada Council for the Arts, which through the Digital Strategy Fund. So we really thank them for making this project happen, and we hope you can enjoy this equipment and access it and be able to utilize and try out some of the things we're going to talk about today. So what exactly, how do we get to this camera? So in terms of what the camera is all about, we need to look at, there's a proficiency test. So in order to access this equipment, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera through our library, so this is through the Blue Mountains Public Library and the Wasaga Beach Public Library, you need to go to our website, take the online cinema camera proficiency test, and then you can access the camera loans at the library. So that's a really great access point and tool that you can you take it. And you know what? Even if you've already used the camera, feel free to go. You can take the proficiency test. I'll know if it comes to us, and then we'll be able to verify. If you already have access, that's great. But it's also a great refresher. So if you're like, oh, I forgot how to use some things, that proficiency test has all the great tutorial links. So you can even just watch through the videos. It's a great refresher in case you haven't used it in a while and you want to be like, hey, I want to make sure I know what I'm doing with the camera and use it properly and so on. So that's always a great tool. So what does the camera mean? What does it look like? How does it function? These are really important tools as digital artists. It's a tool, it's a camera. How do we do video? So a lot of us are familiar with HD video. So right now you're watching an HD video. So HD, we have different formats. So HD is 1920 by 1080. Then we get into 4K. So 4K is basically just double. So 3840 by 2160, and that's what the 4K standard is. There's also something called 4K DCI, which keeps the 2160, but it has a little bit of a higher number on the vertical resolution. So, and the great thing is, so these cameras, this Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera, it allows you to shoot in something called Blackmagic RAW. So some of you might be familiar with things like ProRes, QuickTime ProRes, the MOV file. They're quite large in acquisition, in data size, and so on. Blackmagic RAW is essentially the same size. If you're shooting, let's say, HD ProRes, it would be the same size for 4K in Blackmagic RAW. Now, it also adds this versatility that using Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve software, which is our editing software that we use at the Creator Space, and it's available at our library partners on iMacs. So we have the Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve Studio on all the iMacs. Now that tool is available. The great thing about it is that software, you can then take the Blackmagic RAW footage and you can adjust it. And we'll look at that today a bit too. So, how do we get going with Blackmagic RAW? So let's get right into a demo. So I have this camera right here. So here's kind of like my close-up camera. Let's just get this in focus here. So I don't have a lens attached, but this is basically the body, how we'd see it. And let me just get a little bit closer in here. Just gotta get the focus. Okay. And so different kind of settings. So I'm gonna go to a preset, and what we've done at the cameras, we've made these presets. So you can actually go and create a preset as well. But we have like a 4K preset set up in the camera. at the library. So you take the camera out, you can go right to the preset. So how do we access that? So there's a menu button right here, menu, and it's going to take you to all these different things. So you can see we have some of the functions are the record, monitor, audio, setup presets, and LUTs. So in the preset, that's where we're going to have the 4K, and then there's also a HD ProRes setup, and we offer both of those presets in the cameras. So that's the cool thing. Now, in order to get to the 4K, you can always just do this manually. So you go right here, and you'll see that we have the options between Blackmagic RAW over here, and then we have ProRes here, right? So you can use Blackmagic RAW or ProRes in the camera. So these are what's called the codecs. So not only do we have to think about, okay, do we want to shoot HD or 4K or, Ultra HD, which is the 3840 by 2160, then you have to also think about the codec. So do you want to use ProRes or Blackmagic RAW? So the beauty of, I highly, highly recommend, and that's what we're going to look at today, is using Blackmagic RAW. Because this way you're using the magic that's available with this camera system all the way through post-production. And that means you can change the color temperature, you can change the exposure, you can change all sorts of settings in Blackmagic RAW after the fact in post-production. With ProRes, all that information is basically what we call baked in. So you can't change it later on, but you can still improve it through color grading and color correction, but you can't totally change it. So Blackmagic RAW is this kind of ultimate piece of negative, going back to kind of the film idea. It's a piece of negative that you can then, do changes to and do the information changes to as well. So how does Blackmagic RAW work? So Blackmagic RAW has a few things as well. So again, if we use Blackmagic RAW, and then there's the ProRes. So I can touch the ProRes, and you can see it goes into HQ, 422, LT, and proxy, and that gives you different sizes. Now, what's also important is when you get out of the menu, it's going to always tell you how much recording time you have left. So right now I have 22 minutes on this particular card in the ProRes. Go back to the menu here. I'm going to go to Blackmagic RAW, go back out to the menu, and here now I have 77 minutes in the same kind of format. So you can see I can get a lot more in the Blackmagic RAW. And what I can do too is I can do these compression rates. So I do a constant bit rate. This is what I recommend because there's a constant quality, but it takes up a lot more data. So if you're getting started, the first step I would say is get going with the constant bit rate. Now what it offers us are 3:1, 5:1, 8:1, and 12:1. So these are different compression rates. So it means exactly what the way it sounds is it takes information and it compresses it 3 times to 1. So you say, hey, I'm going to take something that's 3:1. So if it's 1:1, that would be okay. 1 gigabyte per minute is 1:1. 3:1, it's going to take only 333 megabytes per minute instead of the 1 gig. And then you can see the math. So then 5:1, 8:1, 12:1. The beauty of this is, 3:1, 5:1 are all, are higher quality. So there's less noise, less compression. Then there's 8:1 and 12:1. Now I've been more recently using the 8:1 and 12:1, and it looks amazing. I can't really tell a big difference in terms of the video quality, between 8:1 and 12:1. So I definitely go on the 12:1 side. Now you can see a bit more quality when you're going 3:1, 5:1. So why would you use different types of formats or codecs or so the codec, the Blackmagic RAW, and then the quality? Why would you use different qualities? The answer is you have to think about what the end product is or what the goal of this is. So this is where I always recommend. I go, if let's say you're doing something that's, a once in a lifetime opportunity, something archival, something, something live that's happening that might never happen again. So you're capturing something, totally unique. You might want to go for higher quality rates, less compression. This is also important. Let's say it could be some sort of an archive, maybe an interview with someone that is maybe elderly, you're not sure. This could be their last interview. It could be of that great magnitude and importance. So you might want to think about then using the higher quality versus the lower quality. Now, let's say you're doing a longer film or a longer documentary with hours and hours or hundreds of hours of footage, you might want to really consider the 12:1 because you can fit 4 times more information on the card. So the card will allow you to then fit 4 times more data because it's 12:1 compressed versus it being 3:1. Right, so that's the kind of settings there. So that's just something really interesting. Now you can also go to what's called the constant quality, and this gives you quality 0, quality 1, quality 3, quality 5. And just for reference, the constant quality, I can fit 19 minutes versus if I go to the 12:1 in 4K, I can fit 77 minutes. Right, so it's a big difference in the highest constant quality versus the any kind of compression 3:1. Now it's 3:1, 5:1, 8:1, 12:1. The key is that it's trying to work in close to like a lossless type of compression, so that it's not noticeable. Where you're going to notice it is in a higher contrast, darker images. You might start to see some color compression or artifacting in those kinds of darker areas. So if something's also really dark, I also recommend a higher quality. So if you're going to be in a really dark, low-lit area, go for higher quality because there will be less compression. And compression brings out potential noise. So if something's really dark, there tends to be noise in order to capture it, right? So that's always of interest. Okay, so then here, and this is great, the camera really helps you identify the different formats. So here's Ultra HD, then there's a 4K DCI. And the 4K DCI, what that comes down to is it's 4096 by 2160. So it gives you more vertical lines. So it's actually a bit of a wider image, if you can think of it that way, versus the 3840. Now, for television sets, we hear 4K, the term 4K a lot, and this is what I wanted to identify today too, is 4K is Ultra HD in television sets. Then 4K is what's used in cinemas. So it's called 4K DCI, which comes from DCI, which is, I believe, the Digital Cinema Initiative or something like that, the acronym, DCI. Don't quote me on it directly, but that's what it stands for. It's a digital cinema standard, DCI. So 4K projected in a theater on a screen would be that 4096 by 2160, but 4K in your television set at home, generally, you can get a 4K DCI TV too, but it's what's called Ultra HD. And it is, 4K, and roughly it's just under 4K because it's 3840. It's not hitting 4000 like the other one, and 3840 by 2160. So it's really not a big difference. So why choose between one or the other? And this is a good question. I get a lot of these questions all the time. Why choose between one or the other? The key is, what will the end product be? Are you planning to show it in theaters, where it would be shown in a projector that will require 4K DCI parameters or specs? Or will you be showing it more online, or you're thinking of more of a home audience, and then the Ultra HD will work? The good news is, if you shoot in Ultra HD in that 4K mode, you can easily convert it to the 4K DCI and it will still project out as well. So it's not the end of the world, but if you know for sure you're going to be in festivals, showing it in theaters, you want to do 4K DCI because it's easier to take out a bit of the information than to add the information. So it's always, that's the big emphasis. Same thing, maybe you're like, I just want to shoot HD. Why not shoot 4K? I just showed 4K Blackmagic will be the same size as shooting in HD in your data. So it's not going to take more space up. And it actually performs quite well on computers. So a computer trying to deal with HD, if it can do HD, it can work with Blackmagic RAW. And that's the beauty of that codec, is that it's very friendly with computers. So it's designed to work on laptops and not necessarily the highest end computers. It can still run quite efficiently. It just needs the same kind of specs of a computer that can run HD. You can then run 4K with it as well. So that's really the fun part of it. Okay, so that's a whole bunch on the 4K. That's your settings there, and that's really the main thing we need to know. So Blackmagic RAW instead of ProRes. And again, if you go to ProRes HQ, the same 4K, you can see it's 22 minutes, and Blackmagic RAW 12:1, 77 minutes. So a considerable, it's essentially 30% of the size compared to ProRes. So it's a considerable factor that really plays into deciding how you want to do it and what you want to do um, to work that way. So let me just let's get a new. I'm just going to open up a project here, and we're going to look at some stuff that is in Blackmagic RAW. So I'm going to just create a new project here. So let's just go right into, I'm going to go right to my screen now. So I've opened up Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve version 17, and we're going to do Blackmagic RAW demo, and we'll just call it that sequence. And we're just going to open it, so create a new project. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go over to the project settings, and I'm going to create a timeline resolution that is Ultra HD, 3840 by 2160. So that's really important right away. Ultra HD. I'm going to have a 23.976. And video monitoring, it depends on if you have a 4K monitor that you can output to. So I'm going to go to and say, yes, I want to have UHD video monitoring. And I'll say save. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in some footage. So I'm going to import media, and let's bring in some information here. Let's just grab in some. So what happens is, this is what happens with the Blackmagic RAW. So it's called BRAW. So it's not going to be regular types of names anymore, like MOV. It's going to be called BRAW. Now, if you install Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve, which is, there's a free version, the studio version that we have at the libraries. If you install the free version, this will automatically work, this codec. You don't have to do any other kind of information or changes to it. So I'm just going to click a couple of these, just open them. Okay, and now I'm going to go to my edit window, and you'll see they're going to show up like this. And you can see this is kind of a flatter looking image, and this is the raw mode. So it shoots in this like negative raw mode. And this is now here's where the magic comes in. Because this is Blackmagic RAW, and I've have it here, I can go to what's called the image over here under inspector. So I go under image, and I can decode using the clip. Now I can change what things look like. So I can say, shoot, I didn't want to shoot in 400 ISO. It should have been 200 ISO. And automatically it makes it darker. Look how amazing that is right away, from 200 to 400. So I can change that. So I can go, okay, let's do that. Highlight recovery, we don't need to do that. I can apply a LUT. So you can see it's just putting on a lookup table, and it adds all the contrast. I can change the color temperature and say, oh, I wanted it to be a lot cooler. And then the exposure, maybe I think it's too dark. And we apply the LUT, and you can see, what's going on with it, and this kind of. So look how you can change all of these, all this information. I can put more contrast. I can add more saturation. I can change the color temperature. I can make it really blue, right? So you can see it's an amazing, versatile format that I can just change everything in it. And that's the beauty of being able to work with Blackmagic RAW as a format, the Blackmagic RAW format. It works tremendously well, and it lets you, make that, make these kinds of settings and changes. So, again, maybe it's too dark, and I want it to be 800 ISO. So imagine this, like, sometimes you're rushing something, and maybe, you didn't figure something out, and you shot something, and you shot something too dark. Now you can actually fix it in just changing it. So it's basically has it's kind of like reference data, and then the camera's taking it in. It's like a reference point, Blackmagic RAW, and then you can change it and manipulate it in DaVinci Resolve software to change up how it should have been if you made a mistake. So how great is that? Like, it hasn't been often that we can actually go back and change things that maybe we made a mistake on. Maybe I just want 100 ISO, right? So that whole idea. And then I can bring, I can go the exposure, I can go up, up a point. So I can go up like, 1 would be like a stop, right? You can see how bright I can make it, right? So I can play around with that. I can tint it. I can make it desaturated, so I can make it black and white instantly or very low saturation. I can make it super saturated, right? And that's just the clip. So before I even do any kind of post-processing, I can get all this done in that clip right away. So that's the essence of how we can do that. And then here's the default, just the way I shot it. So the temperature, the ISO. So here's the beautiful thing now is that we don't have to actually worry about color temperature if we're not sure what the color temperature is. Get a rough setting, and then we can really fix it here in post. And that's the really nice thing, is to be able to fix in post. Like that way you can actually change things up, decide that the color temperature might need to be a little bit different, and make things work, improve things, and and experiment. So now I can say, okay, well, I'm going to go back to this the clip, and I can say, I can do the decode quality, color generation 5. And how great is this, where I can actually really play with where I want the color temperature to be. So maybe around here. And again, I can apply that LUT and get a good sense of where things are with contrast and everything once I do a LUT. Or I can really shape it right in here and just say, okay, I'm going to add a little bit of contrast, add a little bit of saturation, and that could be my look, just like that. So that's really the thing. So this is a pretty dark image, and I think that's why I wanted to look at, like, what does this mean? And here's something kind of with a bit of like smoke. So same idea. Just get right in there, see what we want to do. Maybe it should be a bit darker. Add a lot of contrast. And maybe I just want it to be black and white. So instantly I can fix everything like that. It basically becomes like this kind of super negative, super digital format that we can do all these amazing things to. So, how cool is that? And I think that's the whole thing. So, remember, in terms of 4K, it's not going to be necessarily a burden for your computer. It's not going to take more data up. In fact, Blackmagic RAW, you can see we can use 30% of the original data that we might have been using in HD or other 4K formats. And it's the Blackmagic RAW format is quite versatile, so I highly recommend using that. You can take out the equipment from our library partners, and that really helps to try it out and figure out what you might want to do, and try different things out, because the best thing is to give the camera some testing. Camera testing is really important. Get familiar with it. Try out this Blackmagic RAW format. If you're already comfortable with ProRes and working HD, that's fine too. Try that out, but I really would recommend getting right into 4K. There's really nothing that is daunting, or it doesn't require any kind of new experience, except knowing that if you shoot Blackmagic RAW, you can then do this post-production processing. We have a whole masterclass series that you can access through our website on our YouTube channel about color grading that has great depth on this. So there's about 4 hours of a masterclass that you can watch fully in color grading, and this will go into more depth. So today, again, more of a technical, getting into what does 4K video production mean with the Blackmagic Cinema Camera. I hope you enjoy this. You can rewatch it, and I urge you to check out our website, do a proficiency test, get out there, use the cameras, take them out. So again, from the Blue Mountains Public Library, Wasaga Beach Public Library, do the online test. You can get access to this wonderful piece of equipment. It's really small. It can, it's the same kind of format as a DSLR in terms of the size and ergonomics and things. So very familiar. So if you already do photography, jump onto video. We really want to see people trying different things at the Creator Space. So again, thanks for joining us. It was a real pleasure. And please join us. We have more technical workshops. We're going to be having some series of masterclass workshops coming up as well. So you can check out our website, tbmcs.ca, for more information. We will have multi-week in-person workshops that we are planning to start in March, and we hope to see you there. And there'll be tons on video production and some audio and editing as well. In the meantime, check out the rest of our online workshops. We're going to have tons coming up in February. We've already posted several. So please keep joining us, and I hope we can learn and explore and experiment in this wonderful world of the digital arts. So thanks again to all our partners in this project. So I want to thank the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, Wasaga Beach Public Library, and the Canada Council for the Arts. Until next time, I will talk to you soon. Take care.